Welcome to JJ the Wedding Planner Podcast, the podcast for all the lovebirds who are young or young at heart, the non-traditionalists who might like some traditions, los que hablan español e inglés, or maybe more like Spanglish, where the one rule is that we are exclusively inclusive. I'm JJ, and after almost 8 years in the wedding industry, serving couples of all backgrounds, I realized that there was an essential place where I can send them to hear from all the amazing POC professionals that I had met. So, aquí estamos para servirles. After each episode, you will walk away feeling empowered to take on the bits of planning that lead up to your big day, while keeping la tía lovingly off your back. Bienvenidos! Welcome, bienvenidos. We are now on episode 7, and I know I have been MIA for the last couple of weeks, but hopefully that has actually given you a chance to go back, listen to the last episode, and fill in your Jumpstart kit. So today we are actually covering the very last part of step 2 on that PDF. Again, if you don't have it yet, then you'll want to go to tinyurl.com/Jumpstart kit. On there, step 2, questions 4 and 5 are what we're covering today, finishing and finally concluding with this whole budget talk, pre-planning phase. Well, we're now into the planning part, but these are the last bits that you'll want to make sure to cover with your partner as we get started on all the rest of it. So make sure you have that. Let's get ready to fill these out. Okay, let's get into it. I am personally really excited about this part because, like I said, we're finishing up this whole money budget type of conversation. This next section is going to make a really big difference as you and your partner get ready to go into the deep end of planning stuff. So what we're talking about is picking your top priorities, right? Because unless you have just an unlimited budget and you have a lot of people helping you, or you're like, you're balling like that, unless you've got that going on, then you're probably going to have to make a couple choices. I don't want to necessarily use the word sacrifice, but prioritize is what I want to talk about. Here are a couple of the tips. Ready? Tip number 1, I want the two of you to write down your top 3 to 5 things that are really important to you. So this might be vendors, it might be location, it might be something you really want at your wedding, and you each want to make these lists separately. So, you know what? Set up like a little, at-home date night, maybe open a bottle of wine or whatever you choose to drink, and do this together, but make your lists separately. So some of the things that might go on these lists of yours that you personally really want or really care about are things like making sure you have photography. I would say regardless of how big or how intimate your wedding is, you want to make sure you have photography. It's like the number one thing. But do you also, for example, want videography? Is that special to you? Do you really want a specific type of cake or specific type of dessert table? Is there a certain type of rental that you really want? For example, the whole lounge area is really big right now in rentals. Do you want to have something like that for your guests? Is there a very specific band or DJ that you want? Maybe you want a live band. Maybe there's a DJ that you have, seen at another event that you really want to have with you. Is there a certain type of stationery that you really care for? Some of us, like me, I'm a little old school with that kind of stuff, and that I love paper things. So invitations might be important to you. Thank you cards might be important to you. Some other options are things like favors. Do you want little recuerdos to give away? Name cards, little things that you can do like that at the table. Is there a specific type of decor that you want? Do you want flowers everywhere? Whatever it is, all of these are just some suggestions, but whatever it is that is really important to you on your list, make sure you write that in your top 3 to 5. A couple actually other suggestions. So the ones I mentioned are general for the wedding, but for you, if having, a specific designer dress or suit is important to you, then write that on there too, okay? Of course, the wedding is for both of you, but I'm sure that if it's something that really means a lot to you, you and your partner can figure it out. So that is tip number 1. Sit down together and individually write lists of top 3 to 5 things you do want at your wedding or vendors for your wedding. Now, number 2, you're going to want to do the same thing in reverse. So you'll write 3 to 5 things that you least care about. So maybe you're actually already getting married in a garden style setting, so you don't really need or want a lot of fresh flowers. Then that might be something that you put in your least cared for list. So for example, you might be a couple who doesn't want any stationery. Maybe you just want to send e-invites, create a Facebook group, get in contact with your people like that. Maybe that's not important to you at all. So you would put that in your least cared for. Any of those types of things that you just feel like you could live without. And let me tell you, there are things in the wedding planning process that you can live without. If you went on Pinterest and you just search like wedding vendors or list of wedding vendors, you're going to find 1,000,001. But that doesn't mean that every single one is necessary for your wedding. So really make sure, take some time, think about the things that you just don't really care about. And that's going to help you, because then when you two, and this will go into the next tip, when you come together, you'll realize what is actually important for the both of you, okay? So make your list like you did in tip number 1, your top 3 to 5 list that you do really want. Make your bottom 3 to 5 list of things you just really don't care about. Tip number 3, now we're gonna match up our lists, okay? And don't get immediately defensive or upset with your partner if maybe your number 1 top thing is their least cared for item. This is just a starter. None of these lists mean it's 100% what you're going to move forward with. Just make sure that you're talking about this stuff, right? Because there might be something you really don't care about that is very important to your partner, and it just maybe hasn't come up in a conversation. So this is the time for that. All right, so now that you've both created your lists, show each other your lists and talk about it. Again, don't go right into defensive mode. Just ask questions. Just say, oh, that's really interesting. I never knew that, having a certain rental, having a photo booth, for example. I never knew that having a photo booth was so important to you. Can you tell me more about that? And then that starts a conversation, because for you, maybe you didn't even think about that. So just have these conversations together, and vice versa. Your partner might have some questions for you, wondering, why you really need that Vera Wang dress. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But again, just having your conversations with your partner is vital. This is the most important part. So now that you have talked about it, maybe there are some things that actually match up. Maybe there are, 2 or 3 items from both of your lists that are very important to you. And then that makes things easier to move forward with. So now that you have that, you can figure out what are some things that you can just completely cut out and not care for. Because trust me, there's going to be some of that stuff that you're like, I just don't care about place cards. That's not important to me. And the truth is, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, you're not even going to remember what that was. Whatever this little item is that you don't care about, and you and your partner don't care about, that's the most important part. Make sure that you go through these lists together, and you can start figuring out what are your top priorities. Now, next episode is going to be an interview, but the one after that, we're really gonna go into detail on how to start booking your top 3 priorities. So that means you've got 2 weeks to do this homework together. Again, find a little day to make a little date, and you sit down together, write these lists, have these conversations, and then we're gonna, once we have your top 3 priorities, so the 3 things that are most important to you, again, that might be location, it might be photographer, it might be florist, for example, then we'll go in and get started on those. So we're finally gonna jump in on doing vendor research, reaching out to people, making calls, and doing all of that coming up soon. So make sure you take the time to get all of this done here. All right, I hope that you were taking notes on how to pick your priorities with your partner. So there's a lot of information there. Like I said, you've got a couple weeks to do this homework and make this happen with your partner. Create these lists, figure out your top 3 things with your partner that are most important to you. And like I said, a little teaser, next week we have an interview with mi amiga, my friend, a photographer that I have gotten to work with on, I don't even know how many weddings we've done together now, a few for sure. And she's fantastic. I'm excited. For Sandra Flores Photography photography. She's going to be with us. You're going to hear a little bit of Q&A, how she got started, how you, the listeners, can reach out to her and ask her questions and, get rates and quotes and all of that good stuff from her. She's fantastic, LA-based photographer. And so that's what's coming up next. I'm excited to get back to y'all in a week or so. So make sure you do this, get it done, make sure you've got your parties, have a little date night, and have fun. Okay, friends, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We can be BFFs on Facebook or Insta at JJ the Wedding Planner. Or if you're actually looking for information on wedding planning or coordination services, you can head over to our website, jjtheweddingplanner.com. And please don't forget to leave us a review on today's episode. Let us know what you thought. Was this helpful? And the more 5-star reviews that we get, the better chance we have at reaching more people with this information. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you soon. Los quiero. Adios.